Hello, 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 everyone. Just hoping y'all can see me. Alright, perfect. Um, well, sorry for those past technical difficulties that delayed us by an hour. However, I feel as if we're back and fully operational. Uh, with that being said, and no further ado, uh, my name is Donovan Martin, Ambassador General for Folklorama, and happy I Love to Read Month, everybody. Yeah. Uh, I'm here with Folklorama for Folklorama Folktales, and today I'm going to be reading some of Matt Evans' Tales of Anansi. Yes, Tales of Anansi. And while you are all trickling in, um, Anansi, the spider, often called Anansi, the trickster spider, um, is a part of Ashanti and African and Caribbean folk tales explaining stories and the nature of life with this witty, keen trickster spider by the name Anansi. I've been told these stories for, basically all my life. Heck, since I was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, I remember my grandfather telling me some of the stories that I'm about to read to you today. But, yes. Tales of Anansi the Spider are those tales I wish to read to you all today. Happy I Love to Read Month, I want to reiterate once again. Tales of Anansi the Spider. One moment, please. And, yeah. But in exactly 2 minutes or so, I think we'll begin. But how are y'all doing this fine Sunday afternoon bleeding into evening? Let's see. Again, apologize for my back and forth nature, but but yeah, the stories and tales I'm going to read today of Anansi the Spider. Though the book I'm reading from is called Tales of Anansi by Matt Evans. Technically, Matt Evans didn't write every single word in these stories. They're translations and adaptations he himself collected. But regardless, Matt Evans did put a concerted amount of effort into finding, collecting, and ensuring as much accuracy and enjoyment in keeping the authenticity of each story. But yes. Tales of Anansi, this I Love to Read month, technically an hour late, but I feel like we can manage and make do. Tales of Anansi, the trickster spider. Of the stories I wish to read to you today are Anansi and the Turtle. Anansi tries to steal all the wisdom in the world. And Anansi how stories came to Earth. Those are the three I wish to read to you today. And then, without no further ado, let's begin with our first story, Anansi and the Turtle. One day, Anansi the spider picked some very fat and very tasty yams from his garden. He baked them with much care, and they came out smelling quite delicious. He could not wait to sit down and eat them. But just then, there was a knock at his door. It was Turtle, who had been traveling all day and was very tired and very hungry. "Hello, Anansi," said Turtle. "I have been walking for so long, and I smelled the most delicious hams I've ever smelled. Would you be kind
kind as to share your meal with me.
Now Anansi, he could not refuse, as it was a custom in his country to share your meal with visitors at mealtime. But he was not very happy, for Anansi was a little too greedy and wanted all the delicious hams to himself. So Anansi thought to himself and came up with a scheme. Please do come in, Turtle. I would be honored to have you as my guest this evening. Sit down, have a chair, help yourself. Turtle came inside and sat down slowly, but just about as he reached for his yam, Anansi yelled, Turtle! Don't you know better than to come to the table with dirty hands? Turtle looked down at his hands and saw that they were indeed filthy. He had been crawling all day and had not had a chance to clean up. So Turtle got up and went down to the river to clean his feet. He then walked all the way back to Anansi's house and saw Anansi, who had already begun to eat. I didn't want these tasty yams to get old, said Anansi, so I began. But please, do join me, Turtle. So Turtle, once again, sat down slowly and reached for a yam. But Anansi yelled at him further. Anansi cried, Turtle, did you not hear me before? It is impolite to come to the table with dirty hands. He looked down and saw his clean hands had once become dirty, since he had to crawl on them to get back to the house. So he walked down to the river once more to wash himself off. And when he returned this time, he was careful to walk on the grass so his hands would stay clean. But by the time he sat down at the table, Anansi had finished every last one of those tasty little yams, and not so much of a morsel was left for Turtle. Turtle looked at Anansi for a moment and then said,
Thank you for sharing your meal with me. If you ever find yourself near my house, please let me return the favor.
And then he slowly walked out the door and continued on his way. The days went by, and Anansi thought more and more of that meal that Turtle had offered him. He got more and more interested in a free dinner, and finally couldn't stand it anymore. He set off one day to find Turtle's house. He found Turtle sunning himself on a riverbank just around dinner time. Turtle looked up and saw him and said,
Hello, Anansi. Have you come to share evening meal with me?
Oh yes, said Anansi, who was growing hungrier and hungrier by the minute. Turtle went underwater to his house to set up a dinner table for the two of them. Soon he came back to the bank and said,
Your place is waiting and the food is ready. Please join me, Anansi.
And then he dived into the water and slowly began to eat his meal. Anansi jumped into the water, but could not get down to the bottom of the river. He tried to swim down, but he was so light that he kept popping back up to the surface. He tried diving, he tried belly flops, he even tried a running jump, but nothing would let him get to the river bottom. In the meantime, there was Turtle, slowly enjoying his meal. Anansi, however, would not give up a free meal, and was running around wondering what he could do. Finally, he had an idea. He started grabbing stones and rocks and stuffed them into his jacket pockets. Now, when he jumped in the water, he sank all the way down to the bottom and was able to find himself a seat at Turtle's table. The table was so beautiful and full of delicious foods, and Nancy could hardly believe how many tasty foods were before him, and he could not wait to start his meal. He reached for a nice, tasty piece of yam, but just the moment before he was able to touch it, turtle stopped eating and spoke.
In my country, we do not wear our jackets to the table.
Anansi looked at Turtle and noticed that he removed his own jacket before sitting down. Anansi started to remove his own, but as soon as he was off his shoulders, he went zooming back up to the surface and popped up onto the riverbank. He stuck his head down in the water and saw a turtle slowly enjoying that wonderful, delicious banquet. And that was Anansi and the Turtle, collected by Matt Evans in his book, Tales of Anansi. Tales of Anansi. I'm Donovan Martin with Folklorama Folktales, and I'm reading you some Afro-Caribbean tales of Anansi, the trickster spider. This next book, or tale, I should say, as Anansi tries to steal all the wisdom in the world. Another Ashanti fable adapted by Matt Evans. This one goes as follows. Anansi the spider knew that he was not wise. He was very clever, sure, and could outwit many different people, but he knew that he did not have much wisdom. This bothered him a great deal, but he did not know what to do about it. Then one day he had a clever thought. I know, he said, to no one in particular. If I can get all the wisdom in the village and put it in the hollow gourd, I will be very wise indeed. In fact, I will be the wisest of them all. So he set out to find a suitable gourd, and then began his journey to collect the village's wisdom. He went from door to door, asking everyone to give him just a small bit of their wisdom. The people chuckled at poor Anansi, for they knew that of all the creatures, it was he who needed it the most. So each put a little bit of wisdom in his gourd and wished him well on his search. Soon Anansi's gourd was overflowing with wisdom, and he could hold no more. He knew he needed to find a safe place to store it. I am certainly the wisest in the world, but if I don't find a good hiding place for all my wisdom, I may surely lose it. He looked around and spotted a tall, tall tree. Ah, he said to himself, if I could hide my wisdom high in that tree, I would never have to worry about someone stealing it from me. So Anansi set up to climb the towering tree. He took a cloth band and tied it around his waist. Then he tied the heavy gourd on the front of his belly, and there he would be able to keep it safe. As he began to climb, however, the gourd full of wisdom kept getting in the way. He tried and tried and tried, but he could not make progress with it around his front. Soon Anansi's youngest son walked by, asking, "What are you doing, father?" "I am climbing this tree with my gourd full of wisdom," Anansi replied. "But, father," said the son, "wouldn't it be much easier if you tied the gourd behind you rather than on your belly?" Anansi sat there quietly for a very long time before saying, "Shouldn't we be getting home now or something?" The son skipped down the path, and when he had disappeared, Anansi moved the gourd so that it was behind him, and proceeded up the tree with no problems at all. When he reached its top, he cried out, "I walked all over and collected so much wisdom that I am the wisest person ever. But still my baby son is wiser than me. Take back your wisdom." And he lifted the gourd high over his head and spilled its contents into the wind. The wisdom blew far and wide and settled across the land. And this is how wisdom came to the world. once more. I'm Donovan Martin with Folklorama Folktales, and I'm reading some tales of Anansi, adapted by Matt Evans for I Love to Read month. This next and last story I wish to read. How about Anansi, How Stories Came to Earth? Another Shanty legend, or another Shanty legend and tale adapted by Matt Evans. It was long ago in Africa when the very first spider, Kwaku Anansi, came to be. He went everywhere throughout the world, traveling on his strong web strings, sometimes looking more like a wise old man than a spider. In that long ago time, there was no stories on earth for anyone to tell. The sky god kept all stories to himself, up high in the sky, locked away in a wooden box. These the spider wanted very much, as many creatures had before him, so that he could know the beginnings and endings of all things. Yet all who had tried for the stories had returned empty-handed. Now Anansi climbed up the web to the sky god, Niame, to ask for the sky god's stories. When the powerful sky god saw this thin and spidery old man crawling up to his throne, he laughed at him. "Ha ha! What makes you think that you, of all creatures, can pay the price I ask for my stories?" The spider only wanted to know, what is the price of the stories? "My stories have a great price for fearsome, elusive creatures. Onini, the python that swallows men whole. Hosibo, the leopard, with teeth like spears, Mboro, the hornets that swarm and sting, and Mosha, the fairy who's never seen. Bring these to me, and you shall have my box of stories." Bowing, Anansi quietly turned and crept back down through the clouds. He meant to capture the 4 creatures he needed as price for the stories. He first asked his wife, Aso, how he might capture Onini, the python that swallows men whole. She told him a plan, saying, "Go and cut off a branch of palm tree and cut some string creeper as well. Take these to the stream where the python lives." As Anansi went to the swampy stream, carrying these things, the branch of palm tree and string creeper, he began arguing aloud. "This is longer than he. Oh, you lie. Oh, no, it's true. This branch is longer and he is shorter, much shorter." As Nancy went to the stream, uttering and muttering, the python was listening and asked the spider what he was on about, saying, "What are you muttering, Anansi? I tell you that my wife Aso is a liar, for she says that you are longer than this palm branch, and I say you are not. Onini, the python, says, 'Come and place this branch next to me, and we will see if she is a liar.'" And so Anansi put the palm branch next to the python's body, and saw the large snake stretch himself alongside it. Anansi then bound the python to the branch with the string creeper and wound him over and over and over, Mune and Mune and Mune, until he came to his head. Then the Spider-Man said to Onini, "Fool, I will now take you to the sky god." And this is as Anansi did. As he spun the web around the snake, he carried them to the clouds of the Sky Kingdom. Upon seeing this gigantic snake, Nyame merely uttered, "There remains what still remains." Spider came back down to the earth to find the next creature, Osebo, the leopard with teeth like spears. His wife also told him, "Go dig a large hole. Go dig a large hole. Anansi said, I understand. Say no more. After following the tracks of the leopard, Spider dug a very deep pit. He covered it with branches of trees, and then he came home. Returning in the very early morning, he found a large leopard lying in the pit. Growling, he screamed, then frantically ran back and forth, whilst Leopard, is this how you act? You should not be prowling around here at night. Look at where you are, said Anansi. Sebo replied, I need your help, man. I don't know how I'm here. I need to get out of here. Anansi said to him, Leopard, put your paw here, and I will help pull you out. The leopard put his paws up on sticks that Anansi had pointed to, and Anansi placed these sticks prior to. The leopard began to climb up these sticks, yet quickly Anansi hit Leopard over the head with a wooden club. Gow! The leopard fell back down into the pit. From it, Anansi quickly spun the leopard's legs to the large club with his web strings. Fool, I am now taking you to pay for the sky god's stories. But the sky god received the leopard and only said in return, what remains still remains. Next, Anansi went looking for Mboro, the hornets that swarm and sting. Spider told his wife, Aso, what he was looking for, and she said, look for an empty gourd and fill it with water. This Spider did, and he went walking through the bush until he saw a swarm of hornets hanging there in a tree. He poured out some of the water from his gourd and sprinkled it over the nets. Cutting a leaf from a nearby tree, he held it over his head. He then poured the remaining water over himself. Then, while he was dripping, he called upon the hornets. The rain has come. Do you not see me standing here with a leaf to cover my head? Fly inside my empty gourd so that the rain will not beat at your wings. The hornets flew into the gourd, saying, thank you, Zaku. Thank you, Anansi. Anansi stopped up the mouth of a gourd and spun a thick web around it. Fools, he said to Mboro, I'm taking you to the sky god as a price for his stories. The sky god Nyame accepted Mboro, the hornets that swarm and sting, and still said, what remains still remains. Anansi knew very well what remained. It was the fairy, Mosha, who was never seen. When the spider came back to earth, he asked Aso, his wife, what to do, and she told him to make a sticky wooden doll. And so he carved an Aku's child, a type of doll with a black and flat face, and he covered it with a sticky fluid from the sap of the tree. Walking through the bush, he found the odum tree, where all the fairies liked to play. He then made ito, a type of pounded yam, and put some in the doll's hand, and even more of the yams into a brass basin at her feet. There by the odum tree, Anansi hid next to some bushes with a vine creeper in his hand, and he attached it to the doll's neck. It wasn't long before the fairies came, 2 sisters, to play. They saw the doll with the ito and asked if they can have some. Anansi pulled at the creep, making the doll's head nod yes. And by pulling on the string creeper, soon the fairies were enticed to eat the ito. After eating it all up, they went and thanked the doll, but the doll did not reply. The fairies became angry. One sister said, "When I thank her, she says nothing." The other sister replied, "Then slap her in her crying place." And so, this is what the fairy did. She slapped its cheek, pop, and her hand was stuck there. She slapped it with her other hand, pop, and that hand was stuck too. She kicked it with one foot and then the other, yet both were stuck to the sticky wooden doll. Finally, she pushed her stomach towards it, and too, it became stuck. Then Anansi came from his hiding place and said, "Fool, I have got you, and now I will take you to the sky god to buy his stories once and for all." Anansi spun a web around the last of the four creatures and brought Moshe up to Niamey in the sky kingdom. The sky god, seeing the last catch, called together all his nobles. He put it before them, and told them that this spider man had done what no one else had been able to do before. He said in a loud and bellowing voice that rang across the skies, "From now and forever, my sky god stories belong to you. Kose, kose, kose. My blessing, my blessing, my blessing. We will now call these tales spider stories." And so, stories came to earth because of the great cunning of Kwaku Anansi and his wife Asu. When Anansi brought the wooden box of stories to his home, he and his wife eagerly learned each one of them. And you could still see today that Akko and Aso tell their stories. Everywhere you look, they spin their webs for all to see. The final time today, I'm Donovan Martin, and I've been reading here with Folktales with Folklorama, some tales of Anansi, adapted by Matt Evans. Though he may not have written all these stories, he found them, translated them, and interpreted them in ways that we can understand. Stories I read to you guys today were Nancy and the Turtle, and Nancy tries to steal all the wisdom in the world, and Nancy, how stories came to earth. I'm Donovan Martin with Folklorama, and thank you for coming on by and listening to, though late, by I Love to Read Month Readings. So yeah, thank you all for stopping on by. Have a good night, everyone.